Hi everyone. Super excited to start today's session. It's going to be a little different than probably what you're used to from Impact Magazine sessions. We are actually having an unSWEAT session today, which is going to focus more on mindset and a little bit of meditation and mindfulness. So super excited to do that with you. I'm just gonna move my camera back a little bit so all the comments and whatnot don't cover my face. I'm sure you guys would rather see someone talking rather than a bunch of comments over my face. So yeah, super pumped to be here. I'm just gonna wait a couple more minutes, or let's say 30 more seconds, so that people can show up and join if they've set them a reminder for themselves. While we wait, I'll share that this session today, this Sweat Across Canada by Impact Magazine session, is brought to you by Neil's Yard Remedies. And you actually can win some of these products from Neil's Yard Remedies if you go to the most recent post that is advertising for this session. So if you go to Impact Magazine Instagram account and you check for the post that advertised for this session, you'll see me. I'm sitting there meditating all zen. Then in the caption of that post shows you the details in how you can win. Hey Elaine, nice to see you. Just seeing some comments here. Dawn says it'll be a nice change to show up to a recovery session and a mindset session versus a workout. Recovery and mindset and meditation and mindfulness, those are topics that are growing of interest across the fitness and wellness industry right now. It's something that we kind of overlooked for a while, and now we're seeing how much we need it and how valuable it is. So yeah, definitely we wanted to offer you some of that today. Hi Janet, nice to see you. So yeah, as I mentioned, you guys, you can win some product by Neil's Yard Remedies if you go to Impact Magazine's post to advertise for the session, and just look at the caption and follow the instructions, and see if you can win the contest. So just to introduce myself, I'm Janey Brown, and I am one of Canada's top instructors, crowned by Impact Magazine themselves. And I'm here today to, as I said, do something a little different with you. It's an unSWEAT session. We're going to have a discussion about mindset specifically related to managing fear and facing fear. And then we're going to practice a little meditation together. And the meditation itself will be roughly 15 to 10 minutes. So, all you need today is to just have a comfortable seating position. You can even lie down and listen if you want. Comfy clothes, just something to make yourself comfortable so that you can stay, tuned in and just get the most out of the session. In the discussion part, which will be the first part of this session, feel free to comment, ask questions. I'm happy to, respond and have some dialogue with you guys before we start meditating, so that you can, get your questions answered and make sure that you're getting the most out of this and really understand sort of what we're talking about, because it's really important stuff. Now that we've done sort of all the prep and the intro, I'll give you a little bit more on myself, and then we'll dive right into the discussion. So I've been coaching for about 15 years, fitness and meditation and mindfulness, and I have my own coaching program online. It's called Fear to Fierce, which is, you can kind of imagine where I got the idea to talk about having a fearless mindset session today. So Fear to Fierce is my online program. You can find it on janeybrown.com or DM me and we can chat in more details. But essentially the program is about conquering fear, managing mental health, and building self-confidence. That's the gist of the program and the transformational process with that. So today, when we have this discussion and we learn a tool, I'm going to be pulling right from my material from Fierce Academy and the Fear to Fierce program. And just excited to share with you guys today. So let's dive into the discussion about fear. Fear is a controversial topic, and actually the title of this session is a bit controversial because it's not, the goal is not necessarily to acquire fearlessness. It's to acquire an ability to be able to have a larger capacity, let's say, to deal with fear. We will never become fearless as human beings, and the reason for that is because fear itself is a structure within us that helps us survive. So it's part of our survival structure. It's part of the alarm system that says, hey, you're in danger and you need to do something about this. If that didn't exist, we would probably not be around today. We would have gotten into all kinds of accidents or dangerous situations that might have led to, which might have been fatal. So fear helps us survive. It helps protect us. It helps keep us out of harm's way. Beyond survival, we also don't want to get hurt, right? So this fear in us, both the physiological manifestation, heart racing, palms sweaty, quickened breathing in the chest, and the mental manifestations, right? Rapid thoughts, tunnel vision, things like that. The manifestations both physiologically and psychologically are there to protect us. Now the problem is that the body can't tell the difference between real fear and fake fear, or what I like to call real threat and imagined threat, or imminent threat and imagined threat. So when you're faced off with actual danger, with real life or death, these alarm bells physiologically and psychologically go off. So your fear is activated. The amygdala in the brain activates the fear. And it's useful. In that moment, your fear is your best friend, actually, because it's now saved you from real life and death danger, or at least help you get out of the situation. What the problem, though, is that fear shows up even in imagined threat. So imminent threat is real life and death danger. Imagined threat is everything else in the mind. I'm about to get on stage and I have fear, or I'm about to go into an interview and I have fear, or I'm about to ask someone on a date and I have fear. All of those non-imminent threats and non-life or death danger circumstances also invoke our fear response, both physiologically and psychologically. And obviously that's not ideal because it can prevent us from taking risks in life and our careers. It can prevent us from risks in our love lives. It can prevent us from risks in our social lives, the necessary risks I'm talking about to advance and grow and move beyond where you are. So the way of dealing with this fear that is incited both psychologically and physiologically in a non-real, in a non-imminent threat circumstance, in non-life or death danger, it's actually to face it. So, after many, many years myself of having a lot of stage fright, I forgot to mention I'm also a 25-year singer. I've been singing for 25 years. For over half of that career, I had just devastating stage fright. And for many, many years, I tried to deal with it by running away from my fear. And you can't run away from your fear because there's nowhere to hide. You also can't fight your fear because if you do, you're fighting what it means to be human, right? We just talked about the fact that fear is part of our survival structure. So if you're fighting your fear, you're fighting yourself. And you also can't bury your fear because it will eat you alive. And all those things I tried over and over again until I finally realized, the only way out is through. Which means I need to face my fear. And so we're going to practice that today. And before we move on, I'm just going to read a comment. Shirley says, or feel fear when you lost a dear person. Yeah, imminent threat and imagined threat, let's say, it's a huge discussion, and I'm touching on it lightly today, but there is something to be said about non-imminent danger that over time can actually be a real life and death threat. So for example, loneliness. In the instant of feeling loneliness for the first time, or Shirley, in your example, grief of loss, in the instant of feeling that, for the first time in the first few minutes, it's not life or death in the same way that if there was a perpetrator in front of you, or, you know, often people use the example of a bear that showed up in the woods, right? Those are within seconds, life and death danger, which is why they're classified as imminent threats. But there's something to be said about non-imminent threats, such as loneliness and such as grief, that if sustained long-term, could actually be deadly. So it's a great example that you bring up, and it's worth, you know, adding that caveat to more deeply understand, you know, the difference between imminent threat and imagined threat, and that even imagined threat is not to be taken lightly. I don't say imagined threat as if we should just disregard it. Well, it's imagined threat, so it's not important. No, we're still feeling the feelings, right? Like, if we have imagined threat before we go on stage, or before we go ask for a raise from our boss, or before we go ask the person out on a date, those are still valid feelings. It's just that understanding the difference between life and death and imagined, as I'm calling it, is helpful, because then you can manage that which might hold you back from growth in life. So we look at, when we deal with managing fear and facing fears, we look at specifically the imagined threat category of fears, because we don't want to manage the fear in imminent threat. In fact, we need our fear, we want our fear, we want it to be full throttle so that we can, you know, use the manifestations physiologically and mentally to get out of the situation. Like when your heart is racing, you know, rather quickly, and all of the blood is flushing to your extremities, that is to prepare you to run, right? We want that to happen when we're faced with real danger. We don't want that to happen when we're about to, you know, give a presentation. So when dealing with managing fear, we're specifically looking at managing the the imagined threat category of fear. And how we do that, as I've mentioned, it's not to run from your fear, fight your fear, or hide from it. None of that works, trust me. It's to face it, and it's to have compassion for the self when, you know, having those physiological and psychological manifestations. And so we're going to practice that today with a tool right out of the Fear to Fears program called the Trifecta Mindfulness Meditation. Bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain why it's called that and how you do it. It's actually quite simple. So in the Trifecta Mindfulness Meditation, the main goal is awareness, acceptance, and adjustment. And the adjustment is where you learn to calm your fear down. So the first A, awareness, is important because you simply can't change what you can't see. Bringing awareness to how you feel physiologically and you know, the state of your psychological disposition, that's important, because if you're not aware of what you're feeling or what you're thinking, then obviously you can't change it, right? In other words, if you're not aware that you're afraid and you're dealing with fear, then you have no way of managing it, because you don't even know that you're actually afraid. So your way of dealing with it might be unconscious. The second phase of the Trifecta tool is acceptance. And acceptance is really, really important, because you can become aware of something and then completely deny what you became aware of, right? You can be aware that you have fear and then say, yeah, but it's not that bad, so I'm just gonna pretend that I'm actually feeling nothing. And again, all that does is lead to this path of, well, I've buried my fear until it sort of eats you alive and destroys your mental and physical health, which it did mine for many years. So awareness is the first step, and we practice that through mindfulness, which we will do in the meditation in a few minutes. And then acceptance is also very, very important, which coalesces with awareness. When we objectively observe the data that our body and our mind are giving us in mindfulness meditation, the immediate step is to find acceptance for that, is to just embrace the reality. And acceptance is a controversial word as well, or it can be, because people think that just means giving up. They think it means sort of just surrender, and it means surrender, but it doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean sort of doing nothing. Acceptance is actually an active choice of, I'm embracing what is, And then that acceptance provides a bridge to adjustment. So awareness allows us to change the things we couldn't prior see. Acceptance allows us to take ownership of and embrace and acknowledge the actual current reality that we're in physiologically and mentally. And then that allows a platform for adjustment, which is where the real change happens. That's where the alchemy happens. So the trifecta is awareness, acceptance, and adjustment. And we'll go through that together so that you know what that looks like when you're practicing mindfulness. And when we practice mindfulness, we become aware of the physical, in case you're not aware of mindfulness, we become aware of the physical, emotional, and mental dispositions so that we can then accept and adjust their state, especially in the condition that we're in, imagined threat or fear invoked by non-real life and death circumstance. So now that we've discussed all of that, I'm excited to go through the meditation with you. It's a tool that I wish that I had, when I was a young performer and a young athlete. And it's something that I now use almost every day, and something that, will be used likely by me for the rest of my life. And I know that there are many, 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 many people now in the West that also use mindfulness. It's just, there's no contending with the science that backs up mindfulness and how useful it is for a multitude of reasons. So that is, a big reason that I've included it in this tool. So wherever you are watching, you can either be lying down or sitting upright. If you're lying down, bend your knees so that the soles of the feet are on the floor. And what this does is it allows the pelvis to be in a neutral position so that the air can arrive in the belly a little bit easier. And if you're sitting up, try to have your feet on the floor so that you have a little bit of sturdiness underneath you, and your spine should be relatively stacked. It doesn't have to be poker straight. It's just in an aligned position, again, so that the air can arrive in the belly when we do belly breathing. Overall, though, priority is that you're comfortable and you can sort of just let go and give in to the meditation. So find your position of choice, and if you feel safe and okay, you can close your eyes. And before you change anything about your breathing or before we get into the exercise at all, I just want you to observe your physical body. So we'll just start with mindfulness. Observe your physical body and notice if there are any tensions or sensations, head to toe. We're not trying to look for things, we're just observing what might be there. And if it's hard to notice physical sensation, think about your feet on the ground or the clothes on your skin, or if you're sitting in a chair, the chair beneath you, or if you're lying down, the floor beneath you, and just pay attention to the sensation that your body has against the floor or chair or clothes. And it isn't a right or wrong thing. We're not assigning value to what we're observing. We're just observing, objectively collecting data. Okay, so try and remove the judger out of the picture. If it shows up, no problem. Just ignore it. And then slowly shift your attention and your observation to your emotional disposition. And this one might be a little harder. What emotions am I feeling? It might be easier to continue to observe the physical body and find emotions through the physical body. For example, when people are anxious, sometimes they feel tightness in their chest. When there's anger, there's sometimes heat in the face. When there's joy, there's sometimes heat in the face or warmth in the chest. And so those physiological manifestations might be gateway or a clue into what you might be feeling emotionally. And again, you're not looking for anything to notice. You're just simply observing the physical body and the emotional disposition and collecting that data. That's it. There's no judgment. There's no right or wrong. There's no value. And once you feel like you've had your attention on your physical and emotional dispositions, and you're feeling like you can move on, you can now turn your attention to your mind and your thoughts. You can ask yourself, what thought is there now? So sometimes it's difficult to become aware of our thoughts because we believe that we are our thoughts. And so the goal here is to detach your personal sense of I, your personal sense of identity, and detach that from the thoughts themselves. So you're becoming essentially the observer of the thoughts rather than the thinker of the thoughts. The observer of the mind rather than the mind itself. And one way to do that is to ask yourself, or to ask in general, what thoughts are there? And just see what pops up. It doesn't matter what it is. Right? Again, no judgment, just observation. So what thought is there right now, and what will the next thought be? And just see the mind go. Because it will go. The goal here is not to clear thoughts. That's quite hard to do. The goal is to observe thoughts and then direct thought energy onto something productive, which is what we're going to do next. So you're just redirecting your thought energy, or what we're going to do next is we'll be redirecting the thought energy that might be anxious or worried or fearful, and we'll direct it onto our breath. Before we move on to breath, though, I just invite you to accept, wholeheartedly embrace the reality that you're in currently. So whatever you observed physiologically, emotionally, and mentally in these few minutes of mindfulness, whatever you observed, just accept it. It's here. If you observed it, it is real for you. So accept that that's real for you, and know that by embracing this current reality, it gives you then the power to change that reality. If you deny the reality, you'll be stuck in the denial of that reality. So you accept the reality to then change the reality. It's the only way. We'll now practice belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, which triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. You can keep your eyes closed and just stay tuned in. So this is now the adjustment phase of the trifecta. It's awareness of physical, mind, and emotions, the acceptance of what we find, and now the adjustment, particularly in fear. Belly breathing is an incredible tool to calm ourselves down. From here, just start by taking a big inhale into the belly, and then just release your jaw, exhale, letting go of any tension that might be in the neck, which affects the entire spine. Again, inhale, belly. Release the jaw, exhale. One more time like that. We're going to inhale, belly. Release the jaw, exhale. Now hold the breath out for just a moment, and we're going to slow the breath down on the count of 3. Inhale into the belly. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, try to stay calm. Hold the breath in for 1, 2, 3. Slowly exhale for 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath out for 3, 2, 1. Again, inhale belly for 1, 2. Try to keep it in the belly only for 3. Relax all parts of your body even though you're holding the breath in for 2. 3, slowly exhale for 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath out for 3, 2, 1. Last time, inhale belly for 1, 2, 3. Hold the breath in, stay calm. Try not to judge yourself. 2, 3. Exhale slowly with control for 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath out for 3, 2, 1. Now take a big inhale into the belly. Release the jaw. Exhale. Maybe you'll notice the breathing goes deeper. Inhale. Exhale. Resetting the breath again one more time. Inhale, belly. Release the jaw. Exhale. Now just breathe normally. You can keep your eyes closed if you want for the last few minutes as we just sort of review what we did. Breathing normally. And again, a little bit more quickly this time, bring your attention to your physical, your mental, and your emotional dispositions. And notice if there's any change. Notice if you can observe any new physical sensations. Is there any emotions that were brought up? Do you feel more energized, less energized? Have the thoughts slowed down? Now that was a quick version of a belly breathing exercise, which would normally be twice as long, maybe 3 times as long. So just know that you can increase the count to 5, keep it at 3 and just go longer. You can design the square breath to be whatever number count you want, but the purpose of it is to slow the breath down, to elongate it, to deepen it, to slow the heart rate down, which combats the physiological manifestations of a fear response. And in turn, throwing a wrench in the physiological manifestations of the fear response, we also affect the mental manifestations of the fear response. So the reason we do this is because we understand that fear will always be a part of our reality in one way or the other. We might overcome fear in one area of our life, but that doesn't mean we'll never feel afraid again, especially if we're in real danger. But fear and the fear response is part of being human because it helps us survive. And the way through that fear is to face it, not to run from it or pretend it's not there or bury it or fight it. It's to face it. So we practice mindfulness to acknowledge it. We accept it. We accept that it's part of being human so that there's no shame present. And then we adjust it with our belly breathing. And that is the trifecta, mindfulness, meditation, awareness, acceptance, and adjustment paired with belly breathing to have a fearless mindset, which really isn't fearless. It's just a larger capacity to deal with fear and to manage fear. That is what makes us fearless, is facing our fears. Thank you all for joining today. Feel free to reach out. My Instagram account is Janey at JaneyBWorld. You can DM me or you can check out my website at janeybrown.com to learn more about the programs that I offer and the coaching that I offer for mental health management, confidence, and facing fears. Thank you again for joining me and have a lovely Friday. It's Friday. All right, everyone. Have a good one.